It's about providing aesthetics to various different objects, such as electronics, there's mice, or any medical equipment, anything like that. But on a deeper level, it's actually about problem solving. Industrial design is part of the user experience, although it mostly focuses on the external part, the physical, tangible part of the actual experience. I've seen within the industrial design community, people saying that, oh, it's going to replace our jobs, or it's going to do something negative to our profession. And I don't think necessarily that's the case.
Industrial design, a discipline that focuses on designing physical products that not only look cool, but also easy to use, whether it's your car, phone, or even a toy. I'm sitting down with seasoned industrial designer Magnus Kopp, who has been in this field for more than 2 decades. In his professional journey, Magnus has designed luxurious interior spaces for private aircrafts for international royalty, designed for commercial airlines, helped big tech companies like Dell, and now helps startup inventors as a senior designer at Mako Design. In this episode, we will cover the basics of industrial design, talk about how to succeed in this career, and explore how design community can work alongside the artificial intelligence. This is Career Calling, and I'm your host, Pratibha Pandit. Hi, Magnus. Welcome to Career Calling.
Hi there. Thank you for allowing me to talk with you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to learning about your world. Coming from the software industry, everybody is more or less familiar with the design aspect of how the apps are designed, how the softwares are designed, but almost forgotten about a lot of the everyday objects that we use needs to be designed as well. So why don't we start by reintroducing the whole industrial design practice? Please share what is industrial design and where it is practiced.
So industrial design is, in a sense, it's about giving, in a simplistic sense, it's about providing aesthetics to various different objects, such as electronics, there's mice, or any medical equipment, anything like that. But on a deeper level, it's actually about problem solving, really solving crucial issues or challenges that provided that affect a lot of people in very helpful and meaningful ways. Where this can be found, it can be found in a lot of different places. Actually, it can be found, have studios that are independent consultancy. There, you'll also have the large corporate offices that will have a design team and in a corner of the building somewhere that will be basically working away on products that they might be designing for their next product line. And there's lots of different variations of that, but those are the two main ones. You have corporate and then you have consult. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you see UX design, that is the app software UX design, as a sub-branch of industrial design, or is it a completely separate practice? And how is the mindset or the work different?
UI UX has started off, as you said, being the software-related kind of development, wireframe creation of the apps that you see on front of our computers. We so often interact with these days, but UX, I think, has also grown to become, UX is short for user experience. And I think sometimes you could argue that a mouse is part of the user experience of using a computer or a microphone, or even the phone itself. When you're using it to actually talk to somebody, you're having to hold the phone and it has to feel nice when you're holding it, even though you probably mostly concerned with is what's actually happening on the inside in terms of your interaction with the screen interface. I would say that industrial design is part of the user experience, although it mostly focuses on the external part, the physical, tangible part of the actual experience.
Mm-hmm. Is it common for any of the physical products to have an industrial design component, like formally, for example, the mic that I'm speaking to, or light I have as part of this thing, or a webcam? Is it common for any physical object, like even if we take on the other side of the technology, let's maybe a handbag or nice coffee mug? Is it common? Like which fields, which industries tend to have it as a formal practice?
I think, yes, I would say is a lot of things are designed sometimes intuitively. You'll have like basic designs in the sense of like, we say that mechanical engineers, you would think that they are strictly concerned with making things that function and they fulfill the need and the form, or have the form they need in order to fulfill their function. But in a sense, they have also been somewhat designed because they need to have a certain look to them in order to function. Now, you have, of course, designers that may create a heightened sense of aesthetics, or maybe a heightened sense of ergonomics or sort of anthropometrics in order to allow it to be more enjoyed versus just utilized. It's to have that kind of the experience with it in the sense of like a computer mouse could simply just be a round shape on the table with some buttons on it. But we considered the ergonomics, the shape of it, how the buttons feels, the click and all that. And since those have been designed, and I think a lot of things that we interact with have been designed, have been worked on, have been developed in order to create a more comfortable experience.
Mhm. Mhm. Tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you stumble upon industrial design practice, and what are some of the areas that you have worked on?
My experience is it's an interesting one. I personally started off more from an artistic background and wanted to be an artist. I thought, I'm going to do painting, drawing, sculpture. I'm going to do all these artsy things. But of course, when I spoke to my parents about this when I was in high school, and my father flatly told me, no, I will not pay for a starving artist. That is not what I am planning to do for the next couple of years of my life. And that is that. And so I was like, okay, I'm disheartened by that. But then when I was at a job fair thereafter, I caught a class where there was a graphic designer that was explaining what his craft was. Now, this graphic designer was very boring, had very uninteresting designs, and I did not enjoy what he was showing at all. But ironically, I saw the potential of what he was doing, which was he was creating art and creating something, but he was actually getting paid for it. And I thought, okay. And simply put, I thought to myself, oh, design, it's like art, but you get paid. So I thought that was really feasible. And so I worked at it from that angle. And actually my degree that I actually ended up with was transportation design, because I thought I really liked cars at the time. So I grew from that after convincing my father, because that was very stubborn. And he finally relented and said, okay, fine, let's go take a look at this transportation design talking about. And after we all sat and talked with the teachers, and he was sold on it. And that's where I started, actually, was doing transportation design, which ended up evolving into my industrial design position that I have today.
Mhm. So is this common to have a specific subfield where you need to major in? When you're doing industrial design, do you need to specialize in a specific type of end product or industry?
You don't need to specialize unless you have a specific passion for something that you're really in my mind, where I'm at right now, for example, speaking from a non-specialization perspective, I work for a company called Mako Design, where we help inventors to help develop their product from scratch to production. And what basically happens there on a daily basis is we're presented with a brand new product. And this product could be anything from a medical product, toy, to some form of electronic equipment, or something even simpler that could be used in the warehouse just to make somebody has found this idea and they want to develop it into something that's really useful that could benefit his specific cause. So there's lots of different, very wide varying ranges of projects that I get to work on. I would call myself a generalist from that perspective. That being said, from the other side of it, where you have somebody that wants to specialize, they most certainly can. I think they have to work very hard to make sure that they are presenting themselves as, I am the specialist in say, for example, transportation design, or say outdoor equipment, or camping gear, or bicycles, or bicycle helmet. If your passion is in, say, outdoor equipment or bicycle helmets, for example, you definitely should probably show that you have interest in it. And that is done through your portfolio work. You start this in university, build up a portfolio that you grow and you show not only the products that you were given and how you solved it, but also what your passions are. Or say, I want to work for, say, Specialized or Bell helmets or something or trekking bicycles or anything like that. If you're really interested in that, then of course you demonstrate and show that. But if you're just, I want to try anything and I want to grow and do this and do that, then I think it's a very viable path as well. So you shouldn't have yourself, if you don't feel like you want to be locked down, then certainly don't. I think that's either way is totally a feasible direction.
Mhm. But is the education structure that way? Are there specializations at that level, like you were mentioning, outdoor gears or camping gears? Is it that way? Are those available as majors?
The transportation design, just to go back to the question you mentioned, transportation design is probably a bit of a unique creature in design in the sense that it's a subsection of industrial design. Car is a product after all, but there's a lot of this very highly developed sense of aesthetics because we're trying to create these very appealing objects on four wheels or multiple wheels, that people are attracted to and they want to buy on site alone and then get the experience of ownership or usage of this. But I think generally a lot of industrial design degrees or courses will try and introduce you to as many different things as possible, just so that you get the experience of trying different things, really challenge your brain and just see what you come up with.
Mhm. What's the framework with which you look at it as an industrial designer? Do you look at world differently?
Yes, I think I've become very critical of poor user experiences. I think when something is not perfectly illustrated, there's a book that's highly recommended, I think, by a lot of industrial designers, a book by a guy called Don Norman. It's called The Design of Everyday Things. And it's about him explaining it's not really about product design. It's actually more about the user experience. He's sometimes actually referred to as the grandfather experience or the founder or the inventor of it. But he argues that, this is my interpretation of what he's saying, but what he's saying is that the best instructions is no instructions at all. The product that you use makes sense. It should just, you pick it up and say, okay, I understand what this is. With just minor interactions, I figured out what this does, what it is, how it improves my life, how it attracts my life, if you're unlucky. But generally, it should be a very minimal level. So when you have to use a product that's unintuitive, it immensely frustrates me because I feel like, no, somebody didn't take the time just to, however the development process happened, this product has not been well served. And those kinds of things do frustrate.
Mhm. What's the day-to-day like? What's the day in the life of an industrial designer? What's the process like at designing a physical product?
Okay. With regard to products in general, I can certainly speak with clarity. I would say that mornings usually start with a nice strong cup of coffee or tea. That's your thing. And from that, kind of follow up and say what news, because I think all designers, they crave a fresh idea and stimulation in terms of like image input on a daily basis, so that that's fuel for them to put back out into a sketch, on pen and paper or on the computer with CAD development. So we follow up on the news. I think most of us are fairly keen on learning what's happening in the world. The following of that is also just to see what is the following up on emails. Like I know with my current occupation, I have to follow up and make sure that, say, vendors are quality helping with the prototypes, or that fellow co-workers are helping out in a certain way, or if I can help them have this teamwork develop that's happening at the same time. But generally then sit down and we work on the current projects I've been working on. And it can vary from doing sketch work, right? Research, material research. It could be finding new vendors that we need for, say, prototyping or for a machine or all the things that we need in order to create a prototype, for example. And then it could be anything from just preparing presentation.
Mhm.
So,
You talked about how you got interested in the industrial design. From the education to workforce, what was your journey like? Was it through internships you get into the workforce? If you could go a little bit more into what are the things that prepared you for the workforce that you recommend, and then how did you get into the workforce?
so my journey might be slightly different from other designers in the industrial designers in the sense that mine where I came from a transportation design degree background, which my initial thinking was when I first graduated from university was, oh, I'll get a transportation design degree job or some kind. But so I did start with that. I did have an internship at a VIP aircraft interiors company, design very lavish interiors, and that it was a very different type of design. Not quite what I expected it to be my first job, but I ended up starting there as my first job, and it was an interesting. But from there, I started working at more traditional design firms where it was basically started as an intern, and then they become just a designer level 1, sometimes that's firm designer 2, and then it goes on to become a senior designer after about probably 5, 6, 7 years of being a senior designer. And then you eventually, if you are feeling wanting to do more of the management side of the product or the project development side of it, you become a design director where you, and that can mean different things. The design director can be in a corporate setting, can be someone that is helping to decide or to alleviate what the design of a line of products can be, creating a family image of products. Design director in the consultancy is going to be more someone that is holding standard, make sure that we're all, the rest of the employees, designers are doing what they're supposed to be doing in a certain standard, even no matter what the project or the product is we're working. And from there, it can grow to become the design and something along those lines. You have a career path where you grow, become quite high up. But it also is very dependent on what the structure of the larger company work.
I was doing research online to just figure out like what kind of questions people have, mostly college students or somebody who's interested. I was pretty surprised to notice this sense of sort of a anxiety that I sensed online, where there seems to be a certain notion of this being a difficult field to crack and grow, and also the opportunities. There is a perception of opportunities being limited. What's your take on that, and how can one prepare for a successful career in this?
It's easier now than it has been in the past. Thanks to the internet, thanks to social media, networking, I think it's been easier using platforms such as LinkedIn. I think allows you to network. I'm actually part of the IDSA, part of the treasurer for the Austin chapter. And the notion of that is so that we can help designers to network, to help them, to allow them to see there's other people in this town, or there's other people that are in the same situation as me, where, okay, I've got this design job, but I'm really scared that if something goes wrong, that I might lose it. And then I'm like, I don't know where to go. But there are people that are in the same situation. And I think you'll find that a lot of industrial designers are more than willing to actually help other designers to at least guide them in the right direction, or tell them, hey, there's this company that's actually looking for a position, and I think you might fit. Don't know if you don't try. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, but I think it also means that you have to be an active participant. It's because as a designer, you're in the daily grind, and then you find yourself 5 years down the line and feeling burned out and very tired. And then you want to, okay, I want to do something else, but where do I go? And at that point, it's a little too late. I should have networked from the very beginning. So even though, yes, you have the job, it's important. You can network. This is not just design, but almost any profession, to be honest, where you have track everyone else is doing and be allowed. And so okay, I lost my job. No problem. I go buy another one. That's all right. I talk to this guy or do that. You already have this plan in place. I think that's the important part to remember is that, yes, at the face of it, it seems a little scary. And design, I think, might be more prone to the market because all of a sudden the market goes down, all of a sudden R&D gets cut, all of a sudden designers get let go. And then the challenge is, where do I go? In my personal experience, what happened to me is I was let go from a company a couple of years back. And for me, it was the best experience of my life because I realized that I was burnt out. I realized that there was things I hadn't done. So I first became a freelancer. And then I decided to start my own company to understand better business of design, the actual development of about what does it take to develop a design consultancy. And it was an incredibly enriching experience. And I'm so happy that I did it because when I finally got a full-time job, I was able to take this knowledge and fully understand, okay, I understand what my job is better now and how it affects what everybody else is doing. And I can then also more actively participate in order to help facilitate and make everybody else's life easier. And I think that gives you also job security, funnily enough. And I think that's so important as well. In short, it's important just to be active, I think, in this end. And then even if you do lose your job, you're never going to stay long unemployed.
So when you talk about industry, are you considering only the physical product, or do you also look at it as a design as a whole, including the software design?
I try to consider all factors as best as I can with my knowledge. Because we're working, say, with inventors a lot, their budget usually is shorter, or it's less of a budget versus larger corporations will have a much more well-padded budget to allow somebody to develop a product. But with a lot of inventors or startups, it's razor thin margins. And you have to do them a favor by trying to consider all aspects. So even when I'm sketching, and even though it looks like I'm sketching and drawing, I am in fact actually already considering how the parts go together so that I can, down the line, not only save time, but also be able to create something that is affordable to make from a production standpoint. I consider these factors. I think that has to do with the fact that I have 20 years of experience in industrial design that I can do that. But I do try to consider all aspects of it, the interaction point in the software, even though I don't work with the software, the electronic. It's nice when you have electrical engineers and mechanical engineers and that. They allow you basically like, I have a question for you. How do we do this? Or am I thinking the right way? Or like, or engineers can they tell you, no, you're not, you don't have enough room button or the circuit board. You need to allow the cooling and all the different things. So a lot of actually development is happening at the very beginning. Even though it just looks like sketches and renderings, that actually there's much more thought going into that first appearance.
In terms of the education opportunities and also the employment opportunities, is there a region where it is thriving?
So there are traditional centers of design, I guess you could say. I think the West in general, you could say, is where you have here in the United States, people will often think design, they might think New York, or they might think California. I'm in Texas, and actually Texas is actually growing design quite a lot. And I think there's a lot of companies also in Texas. I think I used to live in England, so you would say London is a big center of design, but I've also visited Germany or Berlin, Hamburg, or Paris. A lot of the main city centers are where there's a lot of headquarters, quite a lot of the design centers as well. But thankfully, I think also there's a case for the design growing in other parts of the world, such as India or Korea. South Korea has got a lot of design going on, design in Singapore and even South America, actually, Brazil. And you have those places where there's a lot of growth in design as well. And I think that's great because I think that allows actually cultures they have had to buy products coming from a more traditional Western mindset, or able now to design products that are more allowing them to be able to pick something that fits more their culture. And in turn, they can then share this product with the rest of the world, and then people can see, oh, this is great. There's like this great cross-pollination. So the more that the parts of the world are exposed to the ability to design, the ability to develop and craft their own future in terms of products, I think the better off I think we all are.
Makes sense. I've seen you post quite a bit about the AI and its impact on the design. And this primarily, I think, right now at least, we see a lot of it is the AI products are towards the creative side of things, right? Whether it's writing, whether it's design and those things. How do you see it change your field? And what suggestions would you give for somebody to be prepared for a market where AI is going to be prominent?
AI, it's such a fast moving field. I've heard people say that it's literally working at tenfold of growth and even faster down the road. And so how do we keep up? I think the important part is we just have to do the best we can to keep up and stay on top of it. Because I've seen within the industrial design community, people saying that, oh, it's going to replace our jobs or it's going to do something negative to our profession. And I don't think necessarily that's the case. I certainly, as you mentioned, I use AI a lot. I'm still trying to develop how I think I would say I use it more recreationally, and I do just to see what it does and try to keep track of what's happening and see what it allows me to do. Now, that being said, I am also seeing how it can help our workflow, and attentively try to see how it can help things go faster, which is definitely what it can do, not just in terms of replacing certain tasks, but also be able to help me develop new ideas, be able to. So instead of a lot of designers spend time looking at, say, Tumblr or Pinterest or other forms of image acquisition style websites. And what this allows you to do is to actually actively direct AI or use AI to direct and create images that are more specific to what you're looking for, and then create something new from it. And I know there's concern about plagiarism and things like that, but I would venture to say that yes, while there's some images, and there's some images that had been taken from dubious sources, but the end product image is not something that I would never show to a client. It certainly is just part of my process to create the idea that I then find. So I think there's a safe wall there. That being said, I think we're getting over this initial graze area, and we're going more aggressive. Having AI now using, for example, Adobe uses their own catalog of images, which is perfectly fine. And the artists the images are being used, are getting paid, I assume. And basically, there's no infringement upon anything in terms of copyright or all. I think this second wave of AI they hear people talking about, I think it's going to be a great improvement on what we have now. But I think the important part to remember is that AI should never be first. It should always be humans first, AI second. And we should always think like that. And we as designers have the ability to help in our journey to dictate like how AI can be used and how we can be part of that and develop it. I think the future is positive there, and I think it's going to help us be faster and more. And be more creative, allow us to have more time to think more deeply and be more creative in what we do.
You talked about the human first. I agree. I think in a lot of the fields that is true as well, in other fields too. What are some of the core skills that only a human can bring into your field? Are there anything that you think is core to the human mind?
Yes, I think it's important for every career to have the ability to, I think our ability to put two completely separate elements together is not something that AI can do easily, not yet. But I think also for me, and this is something I also talk a lot about, and post a lot about, is sketching, drawing, generating ideas. I think that is, if there's a core skill that a designer could have, is definitely to be able to draw and communicate. I use pen and paper even when I'm face-to-face meetings with clients. Because what I did find a couple of years back is that, okay, I would take notes about whatever it is they wanted to work on, but I wouldn't actually fully remember it. So I said, like, this is silly. Why don't I just draw the thing out? So I drew. I started drawing. The idea of drawing things, just quick notes in the sense it was my drawing note. And what happened was that the clients would see that and be like, oh, I didn't realize that's what you were thinking. Interesting. So it'd be almost the dialogue, the conversation between you and the client grew and became a very rich conversation to where I was able to say, well, when you say this is what I'm hearing, and they usually have a very quick response. This doesn't have to be anything high fidelity. While I like to say that I can draw pretty good after 20 years of work of doing it, I don't necessarily have to bring all those skill sets. I just have to be able to just as quickly, efficiently as possible be able to show them and be able to show clients what it is that they're asking for. And by doing so, allowing them realize that, oh, maybe this doesn't work the way I imagined. I see. Now, why don't we do it this way? And then for me as well, I can see that and understand what my drawings mean much more clearly than if I were to write the words and actually understand perfectly well okay, this is what he's focused on. This is what I can do. But sketching also helps me, just to add one point, that sketching also helps me to plan. Helps me to plan how things go together, helps me plan how to present it, it helps me plan to how to solve the problem. And not just on a superficial level, but also really have an in-depth, even before I get stuck in CAD, to have an in-depth kind of thought process as to how I'm trying to achieve what I'm trying to achieve. And so I think, to sum it up, sketching is very important. Be allowed to be able to draw, take those drawing courses, do all the things you do so that you have a very good hand at being able to show others what they're thinking or what you're thinking.
At that level, does the material also play into picture? Like what kind of, is it plastic, metal, or whatever? Is that playing a role as well at that level itself, or does it come later?
For me, thinking about what material a product is made of when I'm sketching, is that what you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do consider those things. Yes, for sure. And it's all depends, of course, on what the client budget wants to have but maybe we can have fancier materials like carbon fiber, stainless steel, or something along those lines. But maybe we can do ABS plastic or polycarbonate, or maybe something else. It varies, but yes, you do to a certain extent consider those things when it comes to material preference. And that's also what we spend some time also to make sure that we have the material research more correctly available to us so that we can better inform ourselves as well as the client.
That's great. For somebody who is considering this field, what are some of the resources would you recommend them? You talked about being part of the community, networking. Are there any specific resources that has been helpful for you and you recommend for others?
Thankfully now there is a larger online community. There is, here in the United States, you have IGSA, which also is known, I think, through most of the world, I would say. But also there's local organizations, I'm sure, within other parts of the world as well. There's a website called Core 77, which has been around since I was a student, and actually it's grown to become a resource, for designers to look at things. But there's also a lot of industrial designers now on LinkedIn that are creating and providing new resources for reference and for connection to other designers, to help other designers to be able to know where to look. I think the community of industrial designers out there are all, if you were to ask them like, hey, I want to go into this field, what do I need to do? Where can I go? And they'll be more than willing to give you an answer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Magnus. This was very helpful. It was really nice chatting with you. Thank you so much for joining me on my podcast today.
You're so welcome. Thank you for giving this opportunity to talk about industrial design.
This is Career Calling, and I'm your host, Pratibha Pandit. For more contents like this, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating, or a comment. Thank you for tuning in.